You're listening to Media History Podcast,
where stories echo beyond the headlines.
Imagine this for a second. A man, nearly blind, who starts out driving mules, gets fired as a waiter, and then goes on to fund the world's most prestigious journalism prize.
Right, but here's the twist. He also basically invents sensationalist journalism, yellow journalism, using unchecked stories, even lies, maybe even helping start a war.
It's this incredible paradox, isn't it? And that contradiction is the story of Joseph Pulitzer.
Absolutely. He wasn't just reporting on American history, he was actively, aggressively shaping it. He fundamentally changed how news worked, how it connected with politics, with the public.
Creating the mass market newspaper as we kind of know it today.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Media History Podcast. Today we're digging into the really complex life of this media titan, Joseph Pulitzer. Now, our analysis for this discussion is drawn from material published in the Internet Weekly, Reporterzy.info.
And that's pronounced Reporterzy.info.
Right, Reporterzy.info. So our mission today is, well, to unpack how one person could embody both the absolute highest ideals and maybe the lowest commercial instincts of the press.
We want to give you the essential context, the key takeaways about this legendary, very complicated figure.
Okay, so to really get us started, here are three quick things about Pulitzer that I think capture that spirit of chaotic ambition he had.
Okay, hit me.
First, he shows up in the U.S. aged just 17. Why? To fight in the Civil War.
Wow. 17.
Yeah, he volunteers for the 1st New York Cavalry, even though he barely speaks English. He was so set on it, he actually picked a unit with lots of Germans just so he could, communicate.
Yeah, that's sheer determination right there. Just,
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, second fact. He was the driving force behind the nationwide fundraising needed to build a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty.
Ah, I know this one. He used his paper, right?
Yeah.
Appealed to ordinary readers for small donations.
Exactly, made it a real populist project.
Right.
And third, kind of circling back to his own struggle, his very first published article, it exposed a scam.
Oh, yeah. What kind?
A fraudulent labor recruitment scheme. The exact same scheme he himself had fallen victim to. Talk about turning personal grievance into public service, or maybe just journalism.
Incredible. Using his own bad experience as his first scoop.
So let's trace this all back. Where did this force of nature come from? Joseph Pulitzer, born in Moscow, Hungary, 1847.
Right, into a pretty successful Jewish merchant family, actually. But things took a turn. His father died in 1858, and the family business went bankrupt.
So that comfortable path just vanished.
Pretty much. And his big dream was military glory. He tried everywhere: Napoleon's army in France, the Foreign Legion,
Right.
his eyesight. It was terrible even then. Chronically poor vision got him rejected everywhere.
So that sense of failure kind of pushed him towards the U.S. Civil War.
Seems like it. He ended up recruiting himself in Hamburg, basically signing up to fight for the Union. Lands in Boston, fights, war ends, and suddenly he's alone, broke, in a country where he barely speaks the language.
Right. Post-war life sounds pretty rough. Searching for work, sleeping in railway cars, eventually ending up in St. Louis.
Which was a smart move strategically. Big German-speaking community there. But yeah, the jobs he took were humbling, to say the least.
Like the mule driver story.
Yeah. 2 whole days driving mules at Benton Barracks. He later said something like, "The man who didn't care for 16 mules does not know what work and trouble is. You can just feel the desperation."
And wasn't there the waiter incident too?
Huh? Yes. The famous Tony Faust restaurant story. He got fired after spilling beer on a customer.
But not just any customer, right?
No, it was Henry C. Brockmeyer, a well-known local philosopher, a Hegel translator, who ironically later became something of a mentor to Pulitzer. Only Pulitzer could turn getting fired into a networking opportunity, maybe.
It's fascinating, though. Despite the poverty, the health issues, being socially awkward, struggling with English,
Yeah.
he just devoured books.
Right. He practically lived in the Mercantile Library in St. Louis. And he was relentlessly pursuing law studies at the same time.
It shows that sheer tenacity, that intellectual drive, could overcome almost anything. Failure wasn't stopping him.
Not for long, anyway.
And that drive leads straight to his big break in journalism after getting ripped off by those sugar plantation recruiters down in Louisiana.
He comes back to St. Louis furious and writes this incredibly detailed expose of the whole scam.
And gets it published in the Westlich Post, the German language paper, his first real scoop, born from his own misfortune.
And that single article, it just opened doors. The lawyers next door given desk space. He gets his U.S. citizenship in '67, passes the bar exam in '68. things started moving fast.
Really fast. Carl Schurz, the editor of the Westlich Post, hires him full-time in '68. Pulitzer becomes known for working insane hours, like 16 hours a day.
And he climbs the ladder incredibly quickly, becomes editor-in-chief. But he doesn't stop there.
No, he jumps into politics too, joins the Republicans, gets elected unanimously to the Missouri State Assembly in 1869. He's only 22.
22. And apparently they called him Joey the German or Joey the Jew, which tells you something about the climate then.
Yeah, but it didn't hold him back. But his political career, it was kind of brief, wasn't it?
It was. But it profoundly shaped his journalism. He got disgusted pretty quickly with the corruption he saw in the Republican Party establishment.
So he switched parties.
Yep, switched to the Democrats. But it was more than just changing sides. It was like he decided then and there to use newspapers as a weapon against corruption, against the establishment.
And for that, he needed his own weapon, his own platform.
Exactly, which leads to his big entrepreneurial move in St. Louis. He buys the struggling St. Louis Dispatch, then the St. Louis Post, merges them.
And the Post-Dispatch.
Yeah.
And it becomes this dominant force.
And he gave it a very clear mission: declare war on injustice, on corruption, on the privileges of the wealthy classes. It was basically signaling a new kind of activist role for the American press.
Okay, so he's built this crusading paper in St. Louis. But his ambition is bigger than Missouri.
Much bigger. So 1883, he makes his move on the biggest stage, New York City. He buys the New York World.
Which was failing at the time, right? Costing something like $346,000.
A huge sum then. And he knew to make it work in that cutthroat New York market, he needed more than just high-minded editorials. He needed sensation.
Right. This is where the shift really happens. He realizes that blending his reform agenda with, well, scandal and spectacle, that's what sells papers. Lots of papers.
It's the critical pivot point. The world still targeted genuine problems: tax cheats, corporate power, crooked politicians.
But the way they covered it changed. Big headlines, dramatic language, making outrage entertaining.
Sensation became the engine driving the reform message. You get people hooked with the drama, then deliver the substance. Maybe?
And he found the perfect person to embody this strategy, Nellie Bly.
Oh, absolutely. Nellie Bly was a powerhouse. Her investigative work was groundbreaking and perfectly suited Pulitzer's model.
Like going undercover in that asylum.
Posing as mentally ill to expose the horrific abuse at the Blackwell's Island Asylum. I mean, the bravery that took and her reports forced the city to make major reforms. That was real impact.
But to fund that kind of work and to make sure everyone knew about it, you needed big circulation stunts.
Exactly. Like her race against the clock, trying to beat the fictional record from Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 days.
She did it, right? In like 72 days.
72 days, 6 hours, 11 minutes, 14 seconds, apparently. It was a massive publicity coup, sold countless papers.
It really raises that question, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is that kind of high-profile spectacle the old-timey equivalent of clickbait? Maybe is it a necessary evil to pay for the serious journalism?
Pulitzer certainly seemed to think so. The ends justified the means, at least when it came to circulation.
And that focus on spectacle, on grabbing attention, it went visual, too. He invested in color printing.
Big time. 1893, he launches this colorful Sunday supplement, mostly satirical cartoons. And that's where we first meet a character called Mickey Dugan.
The kid in the yellow nightshirt, who becomes famous as the Yellow Kid.
And that single cartoon character ignites one of the fiercest media rivalries in history. Enter William Randolph Hearst.
The other media mogul.
Yeah.
He buys the competing New York Journal, which actually used to belong to Pulitzer's brother, Albert.
Small world. And Hearst sees Pulitzer's success with the Yellow Kid and the color supplements, and he decides he wants a piece of that action. More than a piece, he wants to dominate.
So he starts poaching Pulitzer's staff.
Ruthlessly. Including the cartoonist, Richard Outcault. And Outcault takes the Yellow Kid character with him to Hearst's paper.
Ouch. So what does Pulitzer do?
He fights back, of course. He hires another cartoonist, George Lux, to draw his own version of the Yellow Kid for the world. So for a while, you had two Yellow Kids battling it out in competing papers.
That's wild. And this intense, really vicious competition between the World and the Journal.
Characterized by these sensational, often completely unverified stories, just anything to grab readers. That's what coins the term.
Yellow journalism.
Yeah.
Named after the comic strip that started the war.
Exactly. And this war wasn't just fought with ink. It had real-world consequences, huge ones.
You mean Cuba?
Absolutely. The peak, or maybe the nadir, of yellow journalism was during the build-up to the Spanish-American War. Both Pulitzer and Hearst ran relentless, screaming headlines about alleged Spanish atrocities in Cuba.
Starving children, concentration camps, stories designed to provoke outrage.
And boost circulation. Many of those stories were later found to be wildly exaggerated or just plain false, but they worked.
And then the USS Maine explodes in Havana Harbor.
February 1898, we now think it was likely an internal accident, a coal bunker fire maybe, but that's not what the paper screamed.
No, they immediately blamed Spain, Spanish treachery, remember the Maine, to hell with Spain, kind of thing.
Precisely. They whipped up public fury, basically forcing President McKinley's hand towards war. It's a terrifying example of how unchecked media sensationalism can literally shape foreign policy and, lead a nation into conflict.
The power is immense. And it wasn't just foreign policy. Their business practices caused turmoil at home, too. The newsboys' strike.
Ah, yes, 1899. After driving down costs elsewhere, Pulitzer and Hearst decided to raise the wholesale price of their papers, the price the newsboys paid for their bundles.
So the kids who sold the papers on the street corner suddenly made less money.
Exactly. And these kids, mostly poor immigrants, orphans, they organized. They went on strike for 2 weeks.
Shut down distribution in large parts of the city.
Pretty much. They blocked the Brooklyn Bridge, fought off strikebreakers. It was David versus Goliath. And it hurt the papers. The world's circulation apparently dropped from 360,000 down to maybe 125,000 during the strike.
Wow. It showed that even the most powerful media barons weren't invincible. People could push back.
A small victory for the little guy, but a significant one.
By this point, though, Pulitzer himself is paying a heavy price physically. He's only 57, but the strain.
Yeah, by 1904, he's basically forced to step back from day-to-day management. He's almost totally blind, suffering from severe lung problems, and this really acute sensitivity to noise.
He withdraws, becomes this sort of remote figurehead, right?
Yeah.
Frank Arnikoff takes over as editor of the World.
But Pulitzer couldn't let go completely. He was constantly sending demanding instructions, meddling from afar, wanting detailed reports. Apparently, it drove Cobb crazy.
Until Cobb finally stood up to him.
Apparently so. And Pulitzer, maybe surprisingly, came to respect Cobb's independence. Maybe he saw a bit of his younger self in that stubbornness.
Despite all the sensationalism, the circulation wars, did Pulitzer ever lose sight of that initial crusading ideal?
It seems not entirely. His final act, his legacy planning, is all about cementing the other side of his vision, the high-minded ethical side.
He dies in 1911 on his yacht, the Liberty. Quietly, apparently.
Yeah, the story goes his secretary was reading to him about King Louis XI of France, and his last words, spoken in German, were leise, ganz leise, quietly, quite quietly.
And then his will revealed his big plan.
His final defining act. He left $2 million, an enormous sum, to Columbia University.
Part of it to found the Columbia School of Journalism, which opened in 1912.
And the other part to establish the Pulitzer Prizes, first awarded in 1917. To recognize excellence in journalism, literature, music. The very things his own papers sometimes sacrifice for sensation.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? The father of yellow journalism establishing the gold standard for journalistic integrity.
It really is. And that duality, that tension, is why studying Pulitzer is still so relevant. His whole career can almost be boiled down to two key quotes, two maxims that capture his complex view.
Okay, what are they?
First, every reporter is a hope, every editor is a disappointment.
Ah, that speaks volumes about the newsroom dynamic, doesn't it? The idealistic reporter on the street versus the editor worried about budgets and headlines.
Exactly. The purity of the reporting impulse clashing with the messy realities of the news business. And the second one, born right out of that yellow journalism era, never print anything your maid cannot understand.
That's the mass market philosophy right there. Keep it simple, keep it accessible, keep it punchy. He understood that complicated arguments don't sell papers to the masses.
Direct language, relatable issues, and often sensation. That was the formula.
So why should listeners today really care about this guy from over a century ago?
Because honestly, his legacy is everywhere. His life is the perfect lens to understand the split personality of so much modern media. You see it every day online, on TV.
That constant tension.
Yeah, between the power to inform, to investigate, to hold power accountable, the Pulitzer Prize side, and the relentless temptation to sensationalize, to chase clicks, to manipulate the yellow kid side.
We're basically still fighting the same battles he started, just with different technology.
Pretty much. Every time you see serious investigative journalism funded by or sitting alongside pure clickbait,
Right.
that's the ghost of Pulitzer right there. His internal conflict is now the media's ongoing conflict.
What a journey. from Mako, hungry, nearly blind, broke, to defining both the very best and the absolute worst instincts of the American press. He forever tied ethics and profit together, for better or worse.
So maybe the takeaway for you, listening now, is to think about the news you consume. How much of it is driven by that old Pulitzer legacy, that relentless competition where influence sometimes matters more than information? It's worth considering.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this Media History podcast. We hope you found it insightful. We'll be back soon with another one.
See you soon.
And stay curious.